It is Thursday, February 20th, 2025, and right here on Pod TV, we've got a lot of things happening in the world, including the return of hostages, dead hostages to Israel. So some people are saying that with coffin and taunts, Hamas hands dead hostages to Israel. So they handed over the body of four slain Israelis, including Shiri Bibis and her two young boys. So that is something that is going on in the world, and the return of the bodies marks days of anguish for Israel. And thousands have been rescued from illegal scam compounds in Myanmar as Thailand launches a huge crackdown. So China repatriates more than 1,000 online scam workers rescued from Myanmar. 260 foreigners were rescued from virtual slavery in these online scam centers. And that's definitely something that people are talking about as well. As a matter of fact, one Japanese boy in the Japan Times says he was forced to work at scam centers there in Myanmar. And migrants in Panama have been deported from the U.S. and they've moved to the Darien jungle region. So over 50 Indians among 299 migrants deported from the U.S. to Panama. So that's something else that we're seeing as migrants were deported to Panama by Trump administration and they were taken to a jungle camp. So that's something that folks will be talking about as well. The police are searching for a woman who escaped a Panama hotel where U.S. deportees are being held. And Doge saved far less than claimed, and Trump apparently is blaming Zelensky for the Russia's invasion. So that's something going on that might be causing some problems for President Trump in terms of his own party and all along those lines. And a Dutch court convicts four family members for fatally stabbing a woman in front of her daughter in an alleged honor killing. So that's something else that we're seeing as well. And the Pope had a restful night and had breakfast in an armchair. Pope is sitting up out of bed at hospital as he recovers from pneumonia. So he got out of bed to eat breakfast on his seventh day in the hospital, according to the Vatican. And Germany votes Sunday for a new government that will shape Europe's response to what's going on with Russia and other parts of the world as well. So definitely there's a lot going on in that part of the world, and we'll see how the elections play out in Germany. So definitely that's something that lots of eyes around the world will be paying attention to as well. And Rubio will skip a G20 meeting after calling host South Africa's policies anti-America. So Russia's Lavrov joins top European diplomats at a G20 meeting in South Africa. But Rubio will not be there, as he was saying that may be, with Bloomberg is saying the U.S. snub to South Africa's G20 may be a gift to the BRICS nations. And I know that Nick Palveda and others have been talking about the BRICS nations and how this will play as well. And it looks like folks are asking, including the folks at The Economist, how Europe must respond as Trump and Putin smash the post-world order and everything. So after Munich, it's time for Europe to do the unthinkable, is what some folks are saying. And Russia seems to have had time on its side as the war in Ukraine reaches its third year. So it's about to be the third year of that particular conflict. So definitely a lot of people are still paying attention in that area and all along those lines. So, and the Indian Prime Minister Party named a woman as the top government official in part of their world as well. So Arjun Kejriwal will have to spend most of his time in jail, and BJP's Delhi minister pick Manjinder Singh. So Delhi's new CM far cry from Sheila Dixit and Sushma Swaraj, and that's what some folks are saying as well. So we're going to see about some new leadership in India as well. And Egypt's pharaoh tombs has been unearthed in Egypt, the first since Tutankhamun in 1922. So it's been over 100 years since we've seen something like this, but Egypt discovers first royal tomb in over 100 years. So archaeologists discovered the first pharaoh's tomb in Egypt in more than a century. And Netanyahu said that yesterday, tomorrow will be a shocking, sorrowful day for the state of Israel. And he was referring to the handing over of the bodies and all along those lines. And West Crisis Coalition grows as apparently Trump is rallying against or rails against Zelensky. So definitely that's something going on as well. And that'll be interesting to see what Nick and others have to say about this notion, because apparently Trump's anti-Zelensky comments even caught the GOP off guard. So Trump turns against Ukraine, and Republicans in Congress apparently are staying quiet. So GOP senators back Trump's demand for Ukraine election, but they won't call Zelensky a dictator. So that's something going on as well. And Andrew Lester, the Kansas City man who shot Ralph Yarl, dies while awaiting sentencing. So Andrew Lester dies while awaiting sentencing in the Ralph Yarl shooting. And that's something else going on as well. The man died before the sentencing in the case of a black teen shot for ringing the wrong doorbell. And what's next for the New York City Mayor, Eric Adams? That depends on one judge and the New York governor. So that's something that's being reported as well. 4 takeaways from the hearing on dismissing charges against Eric Adams. So top DOJ officials are offering new and different explanations for dropping charges against Eric Adams. So definitely that's something that folks are paying attention to as well. And of course, as I know the lawyers then talked about, we still got those executive orders coming out. So Trump signs order curbing funding for migrants and eliminating certain regulations. So Trump signs executive order ending use of taxpayer money to incentivize or support illegal immigration. Excuse me. So like I said, there's lots going on in the world, including a grand jury recommending Alabama Police Department be immediately abolished. So that's something going on in Alabama. So the Huntsville police chief and 4 officers and spouse have been indicted and arrested following investigation. So they might be without police officers in that part of Alabama in the not too distant future and everything like that. And 2 Texas teenage girls were arrested for mass casualty attack plot. So 2 Texas teenage girls in custody after FBI and police dispute possible mass casualty school plot. So that's something else that's going on in the part of the world in Texas. And David Valado is treading lightly on Medicaid as Obamacare vote apparently haunts him. So House GOP group wants to pump brakes on big spending cuts and everything like that. So the House GOP budget resolution in jeopardy and concern amid concerns from moderates. And the GOP Hispanic Conference urges restraints on cuts to social programs. So that's something that we're seeing as well. And Trump ends New York City congestion pricing toll, but looks like those folks in New Jersey won't get a break per se and everything. So Trump's push to kill congestion pricing faces a tall legal hurdle. And we do have Nick Valveda, who's an attorney, so maybe he's got some thoughts around that as well. And Trump is supporting Musk's idea to send some Doge savings to American citizens. So maybe folks will be getting a payout and everything. So Trump says Doge could return 20% of its savings directly to taxpayers. So Trump is backing the idea to send some Doge savings to American citizens. So who knows, maybe folks will be getting a check and all along those lines that could help people in these hard economic times. So we'll see what goes on in that space. And Hedgepeth has ordered Pentagon to draw up plans for budget cuts. So they'd like to see some budget cuts in the military as well. And Palantir shares dropped 6%, falling for a second day as retail traders' latest cult trades start to unwind. So definitely looks like a lot's going on in that space as well. And it looks like the SS United States tracker, historic ocean liner, makes it out of Delaware Bay into the Atlantic Ocean on the way to the Gulf Coast. So historic ocean liner departed Philadelphia on the voyage, and it looks like it's trying to become one of the world's largest liners in that sense and everything. So it looks like they moved out of Philadelphia after being there for nearly 30 years. So it looks like it'll be heading on its journey from South Philadelphia down to Florida. And Trump's approval rating hits 47% as Americans name his most significant move so far. So Americans are worried by Trump's push to expand power, but it looks like his approval ratings are doing all right. So Trump's approval ratings underwater 1 month into the second term. So it looks like he might still be in the honeymoon stage and all along those lines. And the U.S. Appeals Court has rejected Trump's emergency bid to curtail birthright citizenship. So definitely a lot's going on in that space as well. So like I said, lots talking on the world, including the National Guard has arrived at Groveland Correctional Facility where there are strikers there. So New York State Police respond to a situation in Milan. So the National Guard has moved into Attica as the correctional officer strike continues. So it looks like there's a strike there with correctional officers in that part of the world in the Northeast. And the Senate has pushed toward confirmation of Kash Patel as the FBI director. So we'll see how this all plays out, whether Kash Patel is about to become the one running this and everything like this. And Trump says the federal government should take over Washington, D.C. Trump says Fed should take over and govern Washington, D.C. So I guess that's something that he wants to now. So I guess he's going after Canada, I think the Panama Canal, Greenland, and that looks like he wants to take over Washington, D.C. as well. And I know that Nick is a big fan of America taking over and all along those lines. So I'll bring up Nick and see what Nick's got to say about this whole idea of Trump taking over Washington, D.C. I guess he would want there to be a mayor of Washington or whatever the other leadership is. He thinks the government should run Washington, D.C.
That's probably a great idea. So certainly they fund it. So the thing is, they might as well take it over. I did find some interesting things on the feed, and this is one of the reasons the Democrats lost the election. Now, this is on our feed. It says, according to the AP, a grant of $25,000 was awarded to University of Columbia. That's the country of Columbia. Quote, raise awareness, increase the transgender representation. Now, granted, it was a small amount, and it's really insignificant, but that's not the point. It's the attitude, first of all, that we invade other countries with our woke agenda and we send them money that we don't have. Then we have another one.
Before you say that, who exactly did the grant? What organization did the grant?
Can I just do two of these and then you guys can chime in? AP said $32,000 to Peru organization featuring LGBTQ hero. Another problem, our woke agenda being exported to a foreign country at the expense of the taxpayer. Granted, it wasn't a large amount. It's the woke attitude and it's the liberal attitude. So if you want to know why you lost the election, keep doing stuff like this, and that's the reason you'll lose.
Well, I had a couple of quick questions, but hold on a second. My first question was, what organization was it and everything? Because you said it was the Democrats, but I don't know what organization it was. It could have been a bipartisan organization. It could have been a grant organization. So who exactly, you said it was this is what you researched, but where exactly organization did it? And how do you know that it was bipartisan?
According to the AP, and we know the AP has been banned from Washington, D.C. because of their attitude. So, go on. But I think Jacoby and Rick have a comment, because I'm sure they both agree with me.
All right, the Gulf of America. AP got banned for not calling it the Gulf of America. All right, so Trump wants to send Doge 20% of Doge savings back to Americans. If you do the math, they claim to have saved $55 billion. 20% is $11 billion. That's $33 per American. So enjoy your $33.
Even worse, Nick, what you just pointed out, you didn't give a source. You said AP said, but you didn't give where the AP got those numbers from or anything. And then on top of that, many of these grants come out of the State Department and not actually USAID. And then on top of that, most of the stuff that you're talking about is a policy disagreement, not waste, not fraud, not anything. So again, we're back to a net zero in terms of savings or anything being found.
Okay, well, Jacoby, you guys had your opportunity to revoke these massive
under Trump.
And if you think about what you guys did,
Nick, you're already starting out putting out false information.
No, you're taking your woke agenda and you're exporting it to countries
that don't get you to answer and you're trying to avoid and gaslight down. This was done under Trump as well. In his first 4 years, he had his opportunity. Even in the last 8 years, the Republican Party had their opportunity. Remember, they controlled Congress for a little bit as well, too. And they put forth these things in the State Department. So your argument is moot.
No, it's not moot. They're going to get rid of this garbage, okay? And the thing is, you had an opportunity under Biden-Harris to get rid of the garbage. You decided not to.
You had the opportunity under Trump. Now you're just making up stuff.
And now you're even defending it. So you're going to continue.
All right, so Nick, you play a ton of chess. I assume there's
way too much chess.
All right, so I don't know shit about chess, but I assume there are certain opening moves where you move a pawn one square forward, and then the best move for the other guy is to mirror that move and move his pawn one thing. I don't know. I mean, I assume that's a reasonable move sometimes. So yeah, the Democrats get played on this stuff. So yeah, the Democrats could have, if the Republicans are going to sensationalize stuff like this, the Democrats sometimes the best move, and they did it on immigration in the last year of the Biden administration. They started doing executive orders to say, yeah, to crack down on and yeah, it's game playing to some extent, but yeah, the Dems should be looking for examples of little woke things that they can cancel, so to take away that move from the Republicans.
That's
just really quick.
What you're saying is absolutely correct.
Because the problem
They-
is
they-
you're
they
playing
take
the
away a lot of
playing
smoke
the
from the
wrong
Republicans
game,
if they were to make
which
moves
is
on
what
this.
Nick is doing. He
People
brought
are
up
talking.
lies.
Yeah, you're talking over each other. Hold on a
brought
second, just really quick. Hold on a second, Nick, just really quickly, because apparently since I know you're a big fan of chess. We've got Sasha when he comes in is a big fan of chess, and there are others on the network that are big fans of chess and everything. And a major Democrat actually used chess as an example and everything. And this was reported yesterday. I saw this, and I was going to have you say your thoughts around this, because there is no doubt that George Clooney is a liberal, and he's been a liberal for a while. He's supported Kamala Harris and everything like that. But apparently, on one of the late night TV shows last night, he actually used chess as a example. So he was saying that he was using chess to teach his son some valuable life lessons. So while speaking with host Stephen Colbert, he shared that his son Alexander 7 is really into playing chess and participates in tournaments. He's 7 years old and playing a lot of older kids. He's not winning all the time, as you can imagine, and he gets upset. And I said, listen, you shake the guy's hand and say, good game, I'll get you next time. And that's kind of how you got to live by those rules. So he's basically saying that that's the way he is handling the loss, that he lost his election, who he was supporting and everything. But there has been some pushback, because some people are saying that that's not necessarily what the Trump camp is doing and everything. So what is your thoughts around this? Because he actually did speak back, and all along those lines, saying that this was an example of how he wished people would handle defeat and everything.
But I think what that isn't what's going on. The defeat has happened. People have already agreed that yes, he won. That's already done.
Right.
The actual response is, and this is where I think the disagreement I have with Rick about the opening salvo of, hey, you did this, so let's take it. That's not going to convince any Republicans. That's not going to do anything. What has to happen is actually what Jasmine Crockett has been doing, and what actually Elon Musk is suing the other news organizations of doing, because the news organizations are actually pointing out the real world effects. Elon Musk is talking about jailing news organizations for doing that. Why? Because they don't want to show the problems that are going on. So this is where, honestly, it should be that, oh, well, this is what you voted for. The FAFO is actually the way to go. You've got to show that agitation and the anger from the actual populace. And you've also got to show, hey, look, this is what you wanted. This is what you called for. This is what you like. You wanted these people fired. You wanted the veterans organizations to sit here and suffer because now there's nobody covering the suicide hotline. That's what you wanted, Nick. That's what you voted for. So that's where the argument should be, because you've got to place the ownership for all these deaths, the plane crashes. We've had multiple plane crashes.
We just had another one in Arizona recently and everything. But I did have a question for Sasha, because apparently one of the things that was said was that the war was going to end within a matter of days. That's what he said when he was campaigning and everything. But now it seems like, if I'm hearing correctly, and you follow it a lot closer than I do, Trump seems to be turning against Zelensky, basically calling him a dictator, even though the Republicans don't want to fall in lockstep with that kind of conversation and everything. But he basically seems like he and Putin are back together and everything like that. So it looks like he is trying to say that Ukraine started the war, even though, best I could tell, Russia invaded Ukraine. But it seems like he's trying to say that Ukraine started the war. So
he flip-flops more than he blamed Kamala for flip-flopping. He flip-flops more than he blamed anyone else for flip-flopping. He flip-flops more than a flip-flop flip-flops when you're walking in it on the beach.
All right, let's hear what Sasha has to say.
Yeah, Sasha.
Well, we knew from a collision of Trump with Russia, starting with his first trip in Moscow when it was still USSR in 1987. So even before that, he was already in view of KGB as the prospect. Uh, he never was an agent of KGB. He's too stupid for that. But he was an interesting material. But then at some point, Russia gave up on him because they couldn't believe that this man could ever become president of the United States. They just thought that he's intellectually and morally and many other factors, he's just simply unfit and it's not presidential material. But guess what? KGB also makes mistakes. So that's one of them. Now, Trump passionately hates Ukraine and Zelensky. Remember, his first impeachment bill was just concerning Ukraine and Zelensky. So he is using, there is no such thing that peace between Russia, Ukraine, or so on. He's using, and he knows very well that there's not a peace, especially now when Ukrainians are getting militarily so stronger, and they're now getting actually an advantage in many categories over Russians. So the war is far from over. And I don't think that the Ukrainians will go for depriving them of well-deserved victory. So what Trump was doing, he was using Ukraine to get close to Putin and to start negotiating directly with him, then to put aside Ukraine and European Union and so on. So he is now doing his politics, what he always wanted to do, and now he's implementing that. So it's now it's a very clever way to say that Zelensky is a dictator and all other garbage. So Ukraine sooner or later will retaliate against Trump, and then he will say, "Well, look, I was trying to help Ukraine, but they don't need my help. They don't want my help. Look at what they're doing. Okay, I'm out. I don't help Ukraine anymore, and let them do whatever they want to do." Okay, that will happen probably sooner or later, although Zelensky is working very hard to restrain himself from doing that. But we'll see.
Yeah, that plays
So,
out and
wait,
everything.
let me. So about Toby's right. You need charismatic politicians like Jasmine Crockett to be out there, pushing, democratic values. At the same time, that doesn't preclude doing some other stuff. Because if you look at party affiliation in America, and it's been like this for years now, you only have 27 to 28% right now of people affiliated with Dems and people affiliated with Republicans, and you have more than 40% of Americans being independents. So you got to keep the Dems, you have to win the independents, and maybe even peel off some disgusted Republicans. Now, let me talk about polls for just a second. If you look at 538, the poll aggregator, Trump is at 49% approval. His net approval has gone from +8 to +2.5 in the 1 month he's been president. So the honeymoon period is going away, but his approval is probably pumped up by about 2% because Republican pollsters are doing more frequent polls because somebody is paying them to do more, because this poll aggregator takes all the polls and throws them into a pot, averages them out. But compared to 4 years ago, you have all these new Republican polling organizations who find, so you've got, a less biased organization has Trump about even. But then you've got the Napolitan Institute has Trump up by 12, and they do weekly polls now. It used to be monthly. And so the Republicans play all sorts of games, including polling.
Exactly. And that's why, again, you don't have, if you also look at the polls where they did the blind poll about the policies of the two candidates with Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, What people found is that people enjoyed Kamala Harris's policies, but due to the messaging and everything else that you're pointing out, people ended up voting against the policies that they actually liked. So it's not a matter of getting rid of the policies or changing the policies and so on and so forth. What it is you need a better messaging and a better tactic. Just as you pointed out, the game itself is doing all these polls saying, hey, Donald Trump is really liked. It's the same thing that Donald Trump is doing where he's trying to attack Vladimir Zelensky, saying that, oh, well, the people of Ukraine really hate him. Well, you know, when he keeps saying that, what is the old Jeffrey? What is it? Jeffrey Gable's the propaganda. That's all it is. You say it. You say it. The more times you say it, the louder you say it. People start to believe it. Regardless,
it's not necessarily better messaging. It's more messaging.
Yeah, I want to wake up this woke panel before I leave because I have an important meeting to go to. Okay, because I've noticed that this panel is trying to pin the airplane crashes on the Republican Party. Well, unfortunately, the crash in Canada was not in the United States, and the crash
it came from the U.S. and it also had U.S. pilots. It came from the U.S. and had U.S. pilots. You cannot dispute. And then on top of that, the actual U.S. is investigating it because also
currently there were two women hires that were piloting the plane. So pin that one. 2 DEI hires piloting the plane. Thank you
also,
very
on
much.
top of that, if you notice, we did not have this up under the DEI time. But now, according to Nick, we're saying we're playing on DEI.
I want to interject because I have been doing research on this with someone. I do want to interject just a minute. If you noticed, it was after they did the hiring freeze that we started having our first major accidents. It was after the first hiring freeze. Okay. When you start putting that much pressure on people who do the work that the TSA people do, you're going to have accidents. But you know what? This is unnecessary. They need to stop the hiring freeze. They need to allow them to start hiring people, and they need to stop the threats of firing people. Why bother caring about your job and caring about others in your job if they're going to fire you eventually? The pendulum swinging like that is what brings not just a company down, and I watched this for years with Nortel, but it will bring a country down. And that's what they have done. And the flights, we've never had planes crash like this in history, ever.
Yeah, we had 2 more, like I told you, recently in Arizona. That was yesterday evening or yesterday afternoon.
Yesterday afternoon, we had one that 2 plane crash. 2 people died. So yes. I just think it's a lack of a real leader for TSA, someone with real merits, because the person there, he may be a good actor. He may look good on screen and talk extremely well with some ethics, a good actor. That's all he ever was. He is a reality TV show actor and a ex-Fox News reporter. There is no merit behind his TSA experience, and it's showing.
Obviously, there's an element of chance in plane wrecks, like private aviation, like people flying around in a Cessna. They can do stupid stuff, and those planes have engine failure a lot. So obviously, it's not all because of Trump policies, but it behooves the Democrats to do what the Republicans do when stuff like this happens, which is try to pin it all on them. That train derailment in East Palestine, where the Republicans were all over that. Why hasn't Biden shown it? Where's Pete Buttigieg? The feds were all over that with all possible aid. They still lost on the issue because Republicans owned the messaging space. And so we can argue about who's responsible for the plane crashes, but you have to own the messaging.
Well, not just own it, but you need to own up and realize there's a problem. And if they want to say it's because of our outdated equipment, then fix it. But you know what? Our outdated equipment was working just fine when we had enough people. We didn't have hiring freezes and people under pressure that they're going to lose their job tomorrow.
No, but I have a question for Sasha. Hold on a second. I have a question for Sasha.
Human intelligence was functioning in it.
No,
You can
stay on
start
this
before you
topic. I
get
got a
to
question for
Sasha.
Sasha. Hold on a second. Hold on a second.
I
I got
just
a
wanted
question
to.
for Sasha based on what we're saying about layoffs and everything, because there
Well,
is
this is
a
before you change the subject on that, because I just wanted to point out with Rick just pointed out the train derailment and what Kim is talking about all the technology being behind. This is where the messaging comes into play, extremely importantly, because it was the Republican Party that voted against all these bills that were supposed to help with that would have stopped the train derailment, which would have fixed that, and actually the upgrades to FAA and actually even the hiring. It was the Republican Party that voted against that as well, and that's what
Right.
owning the message is they
no, but
pinned it
along
on
those
these
same
people.
lines, and that's where I was going, and that's what I want to hear
But-
from Sasha about this and everything. Hold on a second, Kim, because one of the things that I saw, and it's not a group that I'm a big fan of. I don't know when many people are big fans of it. Some people would like to see it go the way of the dodo bird and everything like that. But apparently, we're coming up. February is almost done, which means April is around the corner, which means that there's going to be a lot of people trying to get their tax returns done and everything. And apparently, the IRS, which is in charge of this, is going to be laying off roughly 6,000 employees. So who's supposed to be handling this and everything? Because on Thursday, which is today, the IRS is expected to fire 6,700 employees as Trump has this downsizing spree and everything. So what's your take on this, Sasha? Because I'm thinking there were already complaints that they didn't have enough workers to deal with the tax returns.
I don't see anybody that is going to die by firing the IRS. I see a lot of people dying because we did hiring freezes and are firing at the TSA level. But nobody's going to die if you fire the IRS. They
Actually,
might
yes,
kill
they will,
themselves, but they're not going to kill other people.
Well, people do rely on their tax returns to pay a lot of the bills that they come
So
across.
I don't know if you guys read, but when they did this, they committed to keeping X amount of the people to manage that. So they're not firing all of the IRS today. The rest of them will be fired after May.
With,
Okay.
so with the IRS, we just did our taxes, and like our taxes got complicated enough, we had to start using a CPA. And the CPA is always like, we need a receipt for this, and I'm like, no, you don't. The IRS is broken. Just put the number in the box, and if we get a letter from them, fine. But like they don't have enough people now. They're going to have even fewer people. I filed an amended tax return for my kid. We overpaid her taxes a couple of years ago, and it took 14 months, I think, to get the refund. They're so bad.
If they owe you money, it's going to take you years to get it, and if you owe them money, they're going to hound you to hell. And they charge you an interest. They never paid me a dime of interest for 5 years delaying on paying my bill that they owed me. 5 years. And they had tax collectors calling me because they got that reversed. So they had collectors calling me, and I go, oh, I'm so glad you called me. They owe me XYZ. Can you look at that record again? And then they hang up on me after they look.
Right, but
they didn't even say we're sorry or anything. They didn't do
all
anything.
right, but it's not the IRS's fault. It's the government's fault for not funding the IRS with enough people.
Well, they did. They hired they had 80,000 people. The problem is the way that they use them. They use them to audit people instead of managing the taxes.
But the audit. Now, my dad was a CPA for 60 years, and auditing used to be terrifying. You get a letter from the IRS. We need you to come in. You'd have to have all your stuff locked down. They were on it. Now, when you get a computer-generated letter from the IRS that says this number doesn't match our number, what's the deal? And then you write back and you say, we think this is the deal. And then eventually you get a letter where they've decided, that you don't get hauled in anymore. If you had a bad landing at an airport, or you came scarily close to a plane, you wouldn't call the control tower to yell at the people directing the planes. You'd call your senator or your congressperson and say, what the hell? You've got these people, they're understaffed, they're working 60 hours a week. So
Hey, Rick, along those same lines, though, there's another group of people that are important and everything. As a matter of fact, I'm staring right now at a loaf of bread because I'm going to fix a sandwich later on and everything. And that is the USDA. And they were saying that USDA workers were the boots on the ground in the bird flu battle in Rhode Island. A former USDA worker is warning that cuts could harm Rhode Island farmers and groceries. So definitely they are known for securing America's food system, and apparently they got fired. So
we're going to roll the dice on that. We're going to fire everybody, and we're just going to hope that bird flu doesn't become more infectious to humans. It's already super infectious to cows, and I've been saying this all the time. California has lost 10 to 15% of its dairy cows to frickin' bird flu.
But now you got
all over
think about how bad it's going to get with not only the dairy cows going, but what happens when mad cow comes back? Because that's still not disappeared. And how's that going to be
mad cow? All right, so if what happens with mad cow, it attacks your brain, and if you've got a sloppy food supply and they're taking dead animals and adding their brains to the mix for dog food, in England it got into the hamburgers and it killed, I don't know, maybe 100 people. It gets into this.
I know someone who it killed here in the United States.
It's brutal because it's like it's like turbo Alzheimer's. It kills you in 2 years. It takes away all your mental faculties, and it tortures you on the way to being dead. And
it makes you want to quit eating beef.
It's a disease that affects all mammals. If those particles get into your brain, it F's the hell out of your brain. And if we are sloppy with the food supply, it comes from sloppy cannibalism. A cow dies. You grind up the cow and you throw it, maybe it's no good for humans, but then you use it to feed other animals. Then those animals have it's insidious.
So again, with FDA now gone, you got all these places gone. So now we got, again, with the mixture of bird flu going to cows, mad cow hasn't disappeared. That's still going to rear its ugly head. We still have tuberculosis that's running rampant. We still have now measles went from 48 to 50 some now, from what I understand, in Texas.
So that's West Texas. So West Texas is this little community is anti-vax because they're Mennonites, which is like, I don't know, Amish-ish people. Yes, and so they estimate 300 cases. 58 of them have been officially diagnosed. It's spread. West Texas is next to New Mexico. It's spread into New Mexico. 13 people are hospitalized, and the deniers, the apologists say, yeah, it's just flu. It's just measles. Measles isn't just measles. Measles will F you up. Measles can kill you. It can leave you with lifelong brain problems, heart problems.
Now, remember, also with that's starting to break out in Texas. What other states are bordering on Texas? Because remember, Louisiana has already said that they're no longer going to have kids or require kids to be vaccinated going to school. They're not going to push that. You also have other Republican states that are now around that. Now with the measles outbreak, and now with the actual the head anti-vaxxer who said, oh, well, I just want to look into it, now in charge, now all those Republican states, what's going to happen to them? Because now they're not going to require it. And now we're below the threshold of herd immunity on measles. So now we're having another epidemic that's going to break out. So we got tuberculosis that's going to be, it is an epidemic, not a pandemic, but an epidemic that's going to break out in multiple diseases, multiple viruses, because this group, just like they're doing with the FAA, they're doing with medical.
But there's another group that's out there as well that is being impacted. I know it's hard to believe because we got snow outside right now here in North Carolina and everything, but we are still in the middle of winter. But after winter comes spring, and then after spring comes summer. And apparently one of the other things that's being threatened by these massive layoffs is the National Park Service. So apparently there's been some massive protests, and there's this $640 billion outdoor recreation industry. And they're also saying
Rest
that
in peace, national parks. We will never have another safe.
I want to go back to Mad Cow for a second and talk about the French. Everybody knows the French have a reputation for being snotty, right? You go to France and they're mean to you in a restaurant if they see that you're American. So the French have been medically snotty, where they're like, yeah, we know what we're doing. So they killed a ton of people in the 80s and 90s with AIDS, where the rest of the world is like, hey, France, your screening process for blood donations is sloppy and no good in the AIDS era. And France is like, oh, we are fine, monsieur, fuck off. And they told the world to get screwed, and they gave a ton of people AIDS with blood transfusions. And they did the same thing with Mad Cow. So it used to be, if you had a kid you've got an 8-year-old kid who's at like the 5th percentile in height, you would go to your doctor and they would take extracts from dead people's pituitary glands and hit the kid with HGH, growth hormone. So instead of the kid growing up to be 4'6", the kid might be 5'2" and would be able to have a life. Because a guy who's 4'6", does not do well in trying to get a mate.
I hear what you're saying and everything, but just really quickly along those same lines and everything.
Wait, let me finish. I'm almost done. Let me finish. So the people are saying, hey, France, you are using bad brains, because the pituitary's in the middle of the brain. They weren't screening the dead people for what they died of. And so they were taking people who died of dementia and just grinding up their pituitaries, adding it to the mix. France killed dozens and dozens of short little kids because they were throwing bad brains into. They were like, yeah, we know what we are doing. And
they
so
apparently didn't know what they were doing and everything. But I did have a question for Sasha and anybody else that wants to take it, because apparently the State Department is set to designate certain cartels as terrorists. I don't know why they didn't do this earlier and everything, but the U.S. is labeling Latin American criminal groups as terrorist organizations, one of them being the Tren de Aragua and everything. But is this going to do anything? We already know that Mexico has kind of stubbed their, kind of like responded to some of Trump's reactions, and they didn't respond nicely when he wanted to take them over. The woman that runs the country actually didn't like that and actually had a response that, if you want to call it the Gulf of America, maybe we'll take over some of the stuff that we gave you way back when and everything. So what is our take on this notion?
So I assume this will let the CIA mess with them more. There's a show on Showtime, I think, called Lioness with Zoe Saldana and Nicole Kidman. That I don't know if it's a good show or not. It's got a bunch of like burly people talking tough and shooting guns at bad guys. But it kind of goes into the politics of all this. And so, yeah, given the Trump administration wanting to go to war with Mexico, and this will facilitate like people we don't know about, the CIA and other intelligence agencies, like effing with the cartels more, which might help. And, there are all sorts of other causes. The one problem is that Americans like to do drugs. And drugs are illegal, and so we're supplying the demand, and the cartels, in an evil ass way, are supplying the supply.
Yep, that makes sense.
So the problem is that, which I agree with the Mexican president, or Mexico's president, is that their idea to do this whole terrorist group then allows for them to basically create a military incursion into a sovereign nation.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the whole idea is. And you just can't take the army to go after a drug cartel in Mexico for political purposes. That's all this is. And so I agree with the Mexico's president, because they should not be allowed to do that. I mean, they're not going to do that in Italy. That's where the mob is. They're not going to do that in Russia. They're not going to do that in China. they're not going to do that anywhere else. They're just using it for political purposes to go into Mexico.
All right, so watch Lioness on, because it's Showtime. If you watch Lioness to learn more about this stuff, you will also see Zoe Saldana's naked butt, and you're going to see boobs because it's Showtime. So there you go. You get educated, and there's boobs.
You get educated and boobs. Speaking of that, and I'm just going to change it to entertainment really briefly because I did not
You
watch
know
it.
why you're watching it? It sounds interesting.
It's okay. I just have it running in the background while I'm doing my little arts and crafts.
Has anyone seen 0 Day? Oh my God, that looks like so much like what we're about to face. Or Day Zero, Day Zero.
So what is it about? I've seen a.
It's about like the cyber attacks and bringing down, you know, America. The cyber wars will bring America down, and you know that they're going to actually just go out and start, you know, arresting people without warrants, without cause. They're just going to haul people in.
So I just pulled it up. It looks like De Niro plays a president who does whatever the F he wants, and
he's an ex-president. He's the prior president.
So is it about the government being out of control and bringing the hammer down?
Absolutely. Okay. It's everything that we're going through right now. But I think they started filming this. They had to have started filming this before the election. This had to have been put into place because the way the industry works, you have to have at least one season in the can before you broadcast it. So they probably are filming their second or third season now, but I'm going to start watching it. It looks scary. But look, happy to see you guys. What are your thoughts about Trump enforcing insurance to cover IVF during a time people cannot even afford to buy food? Thank you, Jack Donovan. That's a very good question. Glad to see you. Anyone?
I can take a quick crack at that because he is not actually asking for insurance to cover IVF. He's actually put out, it's basically a blank sheet of paper saying, hey, can you study or can you look into? So it is basically a bone to toss out to individuals so they get trapped into the idea that, hey, Trump is looking out for women. Check out this. It's a political tactic. The same way he and Elon have put out there, hey, we're going to give you a cut of whatever we save, even though they have no receipts on whatever they've saved, because as I read this thing the other day that actually put what they're doing, this money thing, in great perspective. You can save, Kim, I don't know how much your house is. Your house is maybe $4,000 a month. You can save $4,000 a month, not by paying your mortgage, but that doesn't talk about what the repercussions are. So that is what's going on. And there's no studies behind it. So to answer his question, no, it's not. It is just a ploy to keep people distracted from what exactly he's talking about, because it's a distraction. Hey, he's for women. What about the high prices on food? Well, he's helping women. Idiot, we're talking about the high prices of food nobody can eat.
Right, so
it's not just women.
A viewer named Jack Donovan has asked for our thoughts on giving taxpayers a Doge dividend based on the savings of Doge so far. So far, they've announced that Doge has saved $55 billion. Trump wants to give 20% of it back in the form of checks to every taxpayer. That works out to $33 per taxpayer. I would rather they keep the money and apply it to the deficit.
And also remember, one of the reasons that some people voted for Trump is because Trump signed a check and people thought it came from Trump. So this, again, like I said, he's never going to send out some.
Well, remember, he only gave the citizens $1,200 each while he was writing PPP loans in the trillions that put us in this huge deficit.
Well, let's talk about the checks for a second. So Trump, there were checks ready to go out. I think $600 per American. He said, hold on. And he trashed those checks because his name was, and reprinted them with his name on them down in the corner.
Yeah, that's even more.
And so I mean, and it worked great for him. And Biden sent out checks too for the same reason, to help people during COVID. Biden didn't put his name on him. Why not? Why the heck freaking in the Biden White House?
Because people would have
he
said he
actually
was
did.
trying to promote himself. See, people that support
Wait, so
Trump,
Biden's
they
name was on the
support this
check?
icon. They don't care what he does. But if someone else does what he does, it's kind of like when Kamala said, well, I can do the no tax on tips. We can do that too. Then everybody goes, oh, she's just being da, 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 da. But when Trump said it, it was hurrah. So
it all boils down to messaging, because yes, Rick, there were the stuff that was sent out under Biden as well. It did have I think there was a letter or a message or whatever else, but there was no hoopla around it. It was just done in normal your regular
we
normal
need
government.
the hoopla. There's
Exactly.
There's this
That is what people
congresswoman
felt for.
named Nancy Mace, who's a lunatic. Who she's gets increasingly crazy. But she's the one who stands up in Congress and yells tranny, 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 because she doesn't like that there's a trans member of Congress, and she's got big boobs, and she wore a white T-shirt with a big letter A that highlighted her boobs. She felt like she was wearing the scarlet letter. Nobody knew why she was wearing the T-shirt exactly. All we knew is that she was wearing a tight T-shirt with big boobs. The Democrats have to do the same thing. Big. I don't care if it makes sense or not. The Republicans don't care if their messaging is consistent. They just shovel it out there.
Now, that makes sense.
What I
Sasha,
see is they always take the high road, and then if they don't say anything, they're condemned for it, and if they do, they're condemned for it. The Republicans have never had the same equitable means of expressing themselves as the Democrats. The Republicans can say and do anything they want.
The Republicans listen to Malcolm X by any means necessary.
Well, the Republicans actually, what they do, they stake a position, and they hold to that position regardless if it's true or not. And that is what people fall for. Again, it goes back to the old, everybody knows it, that if you say something enough times and loud enough, at some point, people are going to start believing it. And that is what the Republican Party does. The Democrat Party tries the nuance and leans on the better angels of people. They thought that, hey, people would care that this man is giving a blowjob to a microphone on stage. They thought people would care, but they didn't. they thought people would. This man literally. So, for example, during the whole campaign, this man literally said he has concepts of a plan, has no plan. Kamala Harris was put to the nth degree on having a full-blown detailed plan on economics and everything else. This man was going to burn the house down, and he said he was going to burn it down. She said, okay, well, I'm going to work with you, and we're going to work this out. They picked a dude that sat there with a torch.
Well, let's take yesterday. So what Doge has been doing is they, via X, which Doge owns, they say, well, we found this money that went missing. It's just floating around. It's lost, and we found it. Yesterday they announced they found $2 billion that had come loose, and it was unsupervised, and it was being stolen from American taxpayers, and they said that Stacey Abrams has the $2 billion. She's the unsuccessful candidate for governor of Georgia. And then there was messaging all over the place saying it has to be true because Stacey Abrams is worth $3 million. And how could she be worth $3 million if she wasn't stealing part of the $2 billion? And Kim, you're roughly the same age as Stacey Abrams. Stacey's 51 years old. She's been a lawyer for 25 years. She's written 20 books. I'm sure you'd agree that with saving and investing from the salary of writing books and being a lawyer, at the age of 51, you should have a net worth of $3 million.
That makes a lot of sense and everything. Hey, just really
Well,
quick.
if you look at the formulas that they share, so first off, this is something they don't teach us in school, right? They don't teach you the value of the dollar and how to make it work for you, which is a book that I have been working on and hope to publish real soon for children. I've kind of mini launched it in a beta, and I've been giving it out as birthday gifts along with a little cash safe and explaining what it takes to build up. And if you want to have $1 million by the time you retire or before you retire, you can, but it takes due diligence, it takes savings, and it takes no accidents, right? You have to be focused on it. But generally, they say the formula is if you take $100 a paycheck from the time that you're 18 and put it into savings every week, or, every paycheck, and then eventually invest it to where it has compounded interest coming back to you, you should have $1.6 million by the time you're 40. But nobody taught me this. What I did learn on my own is if I put money in savings back in the day, which is a conversation Nick and I had, back in the day, you could earn 4 to 7% interest on a savings account. Now they charge you to have a savings account, or they want you to spend a cash card to earn interest on what's left over in your bank account, which to me is doing nothing but teaching you how to spend money and not save it. So my whole concept is to teach people what I wish somebody had taught me as a child. And the first thing I'm teaching them is how to maintain a ledger and reconcile your money and budget and plan. And that's what the book does. And I'm starting it out from a 3-year-old point of view. I would like to do one, but people don't think a 1-year-old can do anything. But I'm starting from a 3-year-old, and then I have the book staged through the different stages and ages of life. But they don't teach us this, and we should be able to save money to retire without having to have pensions and the Social Security check. You should be able to.
So the average salary, the average income for a lawyer in America is $146,000 a year. And then on top of that, Stacey Abrams has written 20 books. 2 of them were bestsellers. 1 of them got optioned for TV development. So, and you're talking about saving $100 a week, which is $5,000 a year. Stacey Abrams should have been able to save, say, $30,000 a year, and then invest it in the stock market.
We talk about that. Invest more as you earn more, right?
So you say invest $100 a week, have $1 million by retirement. Invest
40, 50, yeah.
All right, we're saying if Stacey Abrams could have, it's not unreasonable if she's saving 6 times that amount, but with a decent stock market. She should be worth a few $1 million.
I mean, the stock market right now is giving me a wonderful return, but it has been for over a year. It's all in how you invest. It has nothing to do with the president, although the president's decisions may impact certain industries. But if you stay ahead of that, if you kind of know that things are going to flip or whatever, or because you've been doing this for years and years, and I mean, I've been watching things since, I was old enough to understand. You kind of know how to flip
Sasha runs an investment show. Sasha,
yes, he does.
Shouldn't somebody be able to?
Well, let me tell you something. One of the main participants in my modern investing show, he's a retired dentist, Dr. Milan Sombarak. And he has developed very interesting plan of how to invest properly without much risk. And there are 6 points what he's making. And point number 1, save. Save as early as you can. Without savings, there is no investment. So to get into investments, you have to understand the concept of saving. Now we have very interesting conversations every Wednesday at 1 o'clock. And we are fighting about the same subject all the time, because in my own experience, I never saved in my life. I always spent everything what I had and more. but it worked for me. Maybe I was lucky, maybe some other factors. But I'm not saying that that's what people should do. Actually, I'm recommending people listen to Dr. Milan Sombarak, because that applies to a vast majority of people down. Now, that raises another interesting question. So when he is making all his S&P 500 investments and he's earning 6 to 10% not interest, but profit a year, and I'm laughing at him because I'm making this profit in a matter of maybe a week, maximum 2 weeks, and and then and he says, but that's you are the genius, but we are talking about average people. Then I'm asking him next question. So is it our show is for losers or for people who want to achieve something more than average person? He's not answering that question, because I'm on my show, I'm telling people exactly what are my positions, what I'm about to do, what I've done yesterday, what are the results. It seems to me that people either they're just scared even start thinking that way, because it will take them out of their box when they feel comfortable for the last 55 years, and all of a sudden there's something entirely new, and they are just scared even to think about it. Maybe that's the case. I don't know what else is. Maybe I'm not explaining it properly. Maybe I should repeat twice every sentence what I'm saying. Once I repeat, I'm just saying what it is, and then second, for especially gifted people, I'll repeat it one more time. Something like this. I don't know really what to do about it. Speaking about the present stock market, if it wouldn't be for Trump, it would be Dow Jones would be at least 10% higher than where it is now, because there are just too much concern about the tariffs, which are bad for everybody, as we know. And stock market, you know, it seems to me, and I've heard actually some opinions of other people, that it's sort of biding its time, but it's coming either decisive move up or down, and I'm getting scared more and more that it's going to be down.
Well, we'll find out and everything. We've got World Politics coming up at 5 o'clock, and I'll be sending y'all that link. And I think we've got a gentleman from
That's a good
one
point,
of the
Sasha.
podcast interviews that'll be coming up at 5 o'clock, and Charles might be joining us as well. But we do have Benjamin Schrader, I believe is his name, that'll be joining us, because I've already sent him the link. So we'll be having World Politics coming up at 5 o'clock, and we'll be talking about the political landscape. So we're getting ready to
And
get on
don't
out of here.
forget to scan the code so that you can go out and text to us. That takes you straight to a link where you can start texting us. Thank you.
No problem. Definitely do that on all the shows. We're trying to get it on all the shows, but right now it is definitely on our news programming and all along those lines. But eventually it might be on all the shows. But right now, let's get on out of here. Barbara Smith will be coming our way at noon.